Hello guys, let's come to discuss the distributed architecture pattern. Distributed architecture is the collection of computational and storage devices interrelated via a communication network. This means distributed architecture comprises of more than one components. Different components, the different elements, we can say the different elements are distributed and are connected through a physical a communicational network. So it is the collection of computational, so it include both computers and storage devices. So this means the network can be between the two computers or between the computer and the storage devices. Subsystem communicate with each other by message passing, remote procedure calls, remote method invocation, etc. Elements are network topology. Network topology is used to connect different devices through different ways, like star topology, mesh topology, bus topology. So there are different ways of connectivity and communications mode. Example are large enterprise environments. Large enterprise environments include large systems that run a business. So obviously it must consist of different computers and different storage devices. B2B system, business to business systems are those systems which connect two different businesses, like services and products, etc. passes with its distributed suppliers and clients. So clients and suppliers are distributed and are connected to this business system. So different categories include client server, where clients are agents connected to the main server. So client server can be the client can be active or can be passive. Multi-tier brokers, servants oriented architectures all falls inside the distributed architecture. So most commonly distributed system architecture decompose a system into major subsystems. So these are two major systems that are involved in the distributed architecture: clients and server. So server basically store the data. So server is dedicated for storing the data, and clients provide the user interfaces. Business rules, constraints are imposed on client sides, and data is accessed. So when we talk about the client server paradigm, we have two entities. One is the reactive entity and another is the active entity. Reactive entity named as a server. They cannot initiate a communication. So this means communication is triggered by the active bodies, which are clients. So we can say active entities are clients which trigger the communication, which initiate the process. And reactive entities can only answer to incoming request. So this means they are bound to answers. While active entities forward request to server, they wait for the responses. So you can see is a client, which is also known as a requester, client request, and request to server, and server means providing services. So in our daily life, you have observed that when you call someone, you hire someone, you hire some employee who give you services. So they cannot initiate a services from their own, but rather they will wait for your request. If you request them, then based on that request they will respond and will give you a service. So service provider is basically a server. The first generation of distributed system was based on the client server style, like mainframe systems, and then second generation distributed objects. Second generation were mostly based on the distributed architecture. So the first this was the monolithic systems, and then the first generation came, and which involved the server and client, and then the second generation include the distributed architecture, which include the servers and clients. So client server style, when we talk about the client server style, most system can be logically divided into three parts. The first is presentation, which is in charge of managing the user interfaces like graphics, and presentation layer or presentation tier is responsible for taking the input from user and showing the output to the user. Then the application logic layer, which process your request, which process your business request or any request, and data management tier for management of persistent data. So we have three tier basically included in the client server style. Normally when we say client server, so this comes in our mind that there will be a three layers, logical layers or tiers, client and server. No, this is not two, this is actually three. So between client and server there is a application layer or application logic is implementing, so which actually process your request. So you can see this figure. So advantage of client server architecture: separation of responsibilities such as user interface, presentation and business logic processing, and reusability of server components. So in our last lecture we have already covered MVC framework, model view and controller. So what was the purpose? To separate all the to make the loose coupling of all the three components. So this is the advantage of client server architecture, that they are not tightly coupled. So this means we can replace any of the application or presentation and data management tiers. But disadvantage: security complications, as data kept by the server is difficult to make it secure, especially when we talk about the cloud technology. So normally in our environment, if we see the bank systems normally avoid such type of technology which are based on distributed architecture, and which include the latest technologies like cloud. Server availability: sometimes the server is failed to provide the services or unavailable, and reliability issues: it can fail anytime, especially when the number of client requests increases. So the server is one and clients can increases. Testability and scalability: so scalability means the number of users or clients supported by the architecture or the whole system. Fat clients with the presentation and business logic together. So fat clients basically are those clients which include both the presentation and business logics tied together. Heavy message traffic, since the front ends and servers communicate intensively. So this means there is a heavy traffic of messages included inside the different tiers. The business logic is encapsulated into the user interfaces. If logic changes, the interface has to be changed as well. So these are the disadvantages. But this does not mean that we will not use this architecture. Besides the disadvantages, sometimes it is necessary to use this architecture, especially in case of business environments, when large business is included. But it's our responsibility to make sure all the non-functional requirements. If you see the disadvantages, mostly we have The non-functional requirements of quality attributes such as security is a non-functional, availability, reliability, scalability, testability are all the non-functional requirements. So if we implement the tactics for these non-functional requirements, so we can avoid the disadvantages. Multi-tiers, so front end can be distributed, front ends clients can increases, and similarly backend servers can also, the number of servers can also be increases. So this is application layer. Business rules are implemented and process the request, and different servers can be synchronized using the distributed architecture. So distributed architecture, multi-tiers. Early 90s they propose a clear separation among the logic. Tier 1 data management, tier 2 business logic, tier 3 user interface. Each tier has its own goal as well as specific design constraints. No assumptions at all about the structure or the implementation of other tiers. That is, tier 2 does not make any assumption neither on how data are presented nor on how user interface are made. Similarly, tier 3 does not make any assumption on how business logic works. Then tier 1 and 3 do not communicate. The user interface neither receive any data from data management nor it can write data. Information passing done by the business logic or middle layer. Tiers work as they were not part of specific application. So the benefits of 3-tier architectures are flexibility, modifiability, reusability. This means new functional can be added to the system easily without modifying the components which are in the charge of realizing them. Easier to localize a bug since the system functionalities are isolated. But disadvantages are heavy traffic and legacy software. Many companies make use of pre-existing software monolithic system to manage the data. Adapters have to be implemented to interoperate with the legacy softwares. So you can see this is a 3-tier architecture. Client user interfaces are there, and data and logic servers. So this was all about the distributed architecture. Thank you so much.